Assalamu alaikum and Shagatum. I am Simia and
大家好，我叫黄健 and I'm 健。
together we will facilitate your learning of chapter 12, which is culture. I greeted you with a traditional Muslim greeting, which means may God bestow his peace on you, and a Bengali greeting, Shagatum, which means welcome.
And I greeted you in Chinese saying hello.
Chapter 12 on culture discusses how different cultural backgrounds and histories impact adolescent development. It includes the influence of socioeconomic status, or SES, and poverty, how ethnicity is a factor in adolescent development. It is important to understand that culture is not only limited to ethnicity and country, but also includes the culture of media, such as pop culture, technological culture, etc. In this video, we will be discussing culture, adolescence and emerging adulthood, and socioeconomic status, and poverty.
First, we need to understand why culture is a relevant component of adolescent development. Schools and neighborhoods are no longer the fortresses of a privileged group, and immigrants, refugees, and ethnic groups are requesting that schools, employers, and governments honor many of their cultures. In the 20th century, adolescent study was primarily ethnocentric. One example is that North America emphasis on self versus the group orientation, like in many Eastern countries. Now that the world has become a global village with the technological advances, global interdependence is no longer a matter of choice, but an inescapable reality. As the world has become increasingly interactive, it is important to understand the behavior and values of cultures around the world so that everybody, including teachers and students, can interact effectively. Cross-cultural comparisons provide us with information about other cultures and the role of culture in development. It reveals to what extent adolescents and emerging adults are similar or universal, or to what extent they are different or culture-specific across cultures. The search for basic traits has focused on the dichotomy between individualism and collectivism. Individualism gives priority to personal goals and values that serve the self, such as feeling good, personal distinction, and achievement. Collectivism emphasizes values that serve the group and preserves group integrity. Figure 12.1 in the next slide summarizes some of the main characteristics of individualistic and collectivist cultures. A recent analysis proposed 4 values that reflect parents' beliefs in individualistic cultures and 3 values that reflect parents' values in collectivist cultures. Critics argue that, regardless of their cultural background, people need both a positive sense of the self and connectedness to others to fully develop as human beings. It might also be interesting to look at figure 12.3, which shows the average daily time use of adolescents in different activities in different regions of the world. Rites of passage are ceremonies or rituals that mark an individual's transition from one status to another, such as entry into adulthood. Some societies have elaborate rites of passages involving dramatic ceremonies that run for a few days, while other cultures do not have as much elaborate ceremonies. Western industrialized countries are notable for their lack of formal rites of passage. The absence of clear-cut rites of passage makes the attainment of adult status so ambiguous that many individuals are unsure whether they have reached it or not. Some examples of rites of passages around the world are the Jewish bar mitzvah, North American high school graduation, and the Burmese Posam Long. Be sure to take a look at the link for 15 rites of passages from around the world.
Socioeconomic status, or SES, refers to a grouping of people with similar occupational, educational, and economic characteristics. Individuals with different SES have varying levels of power, influence, and prestige. Socioeconomic status carries with it certain inequalities. The number of visibly different socioeconomic statuses depends on the community's size and complexity. In most investigators' descriptions of SES, two categories, which are low and middle, are used, although as many as 5 categories have been delineated. The families, schools, and neighborhoods of adolescents have socioeconomic characteristics. Some adolescents have parents who have a great deal of money and who work in prestigious occupations. Such adolescents enjoy vacations abroad and attend schools where the mix of students is primarily middle or upper SES backgrounds. Other adolescents have parents who do not have a lot of money and attend schools where the mix of students is mainly from lower SES backgrounds. Such variations in neighborhood settings can influence adolescents' adjustment and achievement. Lower SES parents are more concerned that their children conform to society's expectations, create a home atmosphere in which it is clear that parents have authority over children, use physical punishment more in disciplining their children, and are more directive and less conversational with their children. Higher SES parents are more concerned with developing children's initiative and delay of gratification, create a home atmosphere in which children are more nearly equal participants and which rules are discussed as opposed to being laid down in an authoritarian manner, are less likely to use physical punishment, and are less directive and more conversational with their children. Poverty is defined by economic hardship. While some adolescents are resilient and cope with challenges of poverty without major setbacks, many struggle unsuccessfully. Living in poverty has many psychological effects on adolescents. They experience more conflict, violence, instability, and chaos in their homes. They get less social support, and their parents are less responsive. They watch more TV, have less access to books and computers. Their schools and child care facilities are inferior, and parental monitoring is less. The air they breathe and water they drink are more polluted, and their homes are overcrowded. They live in more dangerous and physically deteriorating neighborhoods with less adequate municipal services. Also, a number of other negative aspects and outcomes of poverty are a risk factor for sexual problems, running away from home, reduction of income for divorced mothers, school-related risks and problems, etc. A study has revealed that the more years 7 to 13-year-olds spent living in poverty, the more their psychological indices of stress were elevated. A special concern is the high percentage of children and adolescents growing up in mother-headed households in poverty. They concluded that because poor single mothers are more distressed, they tend to show low support, nurturance, and involvement with their children. Another term called feminization of poverty refers to the fact that far more women than men live in poverty. There are several organizations and programs in North America that aim at helping adolescents in low SES. One trend in anti-poverty programs is to conduct two-generation interventions whereby services are provided both to the children and to the parents. The New Hope program was designed to increase parental employment and reduce family poverty and see its effects on adolescent development. Quantum Opportunities Program is a mentoring program funded by the Ford Foundation, and El Puente is in New York City, which aims at Latino adolescents living in low SES areas. That's all for the first part. We hope that you enjoyed the second part.